Hello and welcome to this episode of UFO News. Today, we're really going to be focusing on how people in the government are talking about this, with recent articles written about Chuck Schumer talking about UFOs and Representative Tim Burchett. Let's get straight into it. Starting off with then Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. He recently wrote on Twitter, "Okay, now do UFOs." And that is talking to President Trump specifically because Trump had mentioned right before he went into office that, hey, I'm going to release UFO files and UFO archives right after I become president. And there's a little bit more to that. He also said he was going to release JFK files, Martin Luther King Jr. files, and a few others. But he followed through on those files, JFK and MLK, but not on UFOs as of yet. So Schumer said, all right, get it together. Now do UFOs. And you can read that short sentence in so many different ways. For me, I could read it with a little bit of frustration of like, come on, buddy, you promised this. Let's do it. Now, why is Chuck Schumer relevant? Well, in 2023, he created the Schumer Rounds Amendment. And he gave it to the Pentagon, and they really shaved it off when they released the NDAA. Well, in that amendment, what he and Mike Rounds wanted to do was state, okay, we want these agencies to release UFO files in a certain period of time. And if they're classified, explain as to why they are classified. It didn't pass, which is an absolute bummer. And it's obviously a little bit fishy as well of like, if you have nothing to hide, Pentagon, why did you not let this amendment pass? Of course, there's going to be the narrative of, well, it's a national security issue. Okay, some of them can be, sure, but all of them? The probably mountains and mountains of files that you have, there have been so many reports of people in the military, in the government, that have reported to the Pentagon with their UFO sightings. And they're put in the back burner, put into a file never to be seen again. David Fravor, one of the eyewitnesses to the Tic Tac, had mentioned this. Him specifically. And we've heard it time and time again over the decades. So Schumer was like, I'm not gonna fall for this. Let's get that news. Let's get those files. Well, the amendment didn't pass. So now he has to look at President Trump to say, all right, you're in power. Get it together. Something else that was recently written was Tim Burchett was on the Matt Gaetz show, and he stated that there are underwater bases, probably extraterrestrial. And this was like, whoa. What are you on about, Tim? That's crazy. Now, before we even get into further detail on that, he definitely needs a background because since, 2023, let's say, 2022, he has been the front runner congressman pushing for UFO transparency, more so than any other congressman in the United States in the public eye. He has spoken about there is a cover-up taking place within the Pentagon. They do have UFO information. They're not willing to share it. He has helped with the UFO congressional hearings, the one with David Grush, and then the recent one, right, with Lou Elizondo. He has been reading all of the files released by AARO, by the UAPTF. He was knowledgeable in the AOI MSG hearing with Scott Bray and Ronald Moultrie, and he was so frustrated about that hearing. That was one of our first UFO hearings in 50 plus years. And that was run by Andre Carson. And he was like, they know exactly what they're covering up. It was an absolute mess, and they're treating us like we're not very smart. As the years have passed, he has shown a constant interest, even being a part of the UAP caucus, working closely with Anna Paulina Luna. And he has given a bunch of different interviews, both on podcasts and on the mainstream, talking talking about UFOs, talking about what he wants to know, that he's always been interested in the topic. No matter what, he wants the information. And he's mentioned before, along with Anna Paulina Luna, this isn't necessarily about little green men, so they say. It's about the funding. Where is the money going? Because when Arrow released their Volume 1 report in March of last year, they said, well, we've had all of these offices. Sign, Saucer, Grudge, Kona Blue, AOIMSG, Arrow, since 1947, all the way to present day. And all of those offices and projects have said, we've done the research, we've done the investigations, but there's nothing to see here. Nothing extraordinary. It's not extraterrestrial. Guys, sit down and don't get too excited. Tim Burchett called them out, and he said, well, if that's the case, then why are you still funding these offices and these projects if you already have all the answers? Nancy Mace, who was the chairwoman of the latest UFO congressional hearing, said the exact same thing. She's like, okay, if there's nothing to see here, release the files. Tell us where that funding is going. Some people are frustrated about that they have to take that stance of money. But once you can follow the paper trail and follow the money, as we hear so many times, that will lead us to the answers that we really do want. In this case, for Eric Burleson, who was at both congressional hearings, said, where are the bodies? Do we have bodies? Bodies, right? And many of us have those same burning questions. But we also have to remember that in order to get the answers that you want, you have to ask the right questions. And sometimes you can ask a brilliant question, but it's a little bit too head-on. And the person receiving that question, have signed NDAs, they know secrets, and they can't share it. So you have to dance this beautiful tango almost of not only asking the right questions, but asking it in a way, almost in a mathematical formula, in order to receive the answer that you're looking for without allowing the person receiving that question breaking any NDAs. Which, of course, is an eye roller. You're like, just give us the information that we want. We don't care, right? We have to. We have to care about people's safety, always. And those hearings were no exception. Same when we're interviewing these people one-on-one in a podcast format or on a mainstream media show. You have to be strategic with the questions that you ask. Now, as for Tim Burchett, he's a bit different. He's really like a bull in a china shop. He will tell you how it is, at least from all of the interviews that I've seen him do. And sometimes he's a little bit hesitant. He's like, but then he answers the question. He still answers it because I think he's a great example of a civil worker. Like, he is really someone working for the people when it's coming to UFO disclosure. But when it comes to that topic specifically, which is what I look at and research and investigate, that's what matters to me. So for him to say recently on the Matt Gaetz show, who was also a congressman, of like, yeah, we have bases underwater. That would be the best place to hide, is in our Earth's oceans. 10 to 15% of our oceans have been scanned, explored, and understood. That's leaving 85 to 90% of our oceans in the category of unknown and absolute monster soup. You have no idea what's lurking in our oceans. Our submarines, our technology only goes so deep. Our sonar equipment can only find and look at so much. It would be wise to have a base underwater that just exceeds our technological innovations and inventions as well. And some places on our planet, that water is deep. The pressure is insane. But if you have the right tech, where you're not going to be crushed like a Coke can, you're pretty safe. And it's a smart thing to do. So was it surprising that information was made public? No. Is it surprising that Representative Tim Burchett said it? Yes. Because he is a congressman, someone held in high regard, someone with credentials and credibility. On top of that, he has conducted interviews with whistleblowers, with pilots. People have come forward to him to share their stories. And I can guess here that with this latest statement, someone told him about it. It wasn't just that he was just reading through a book or watching a documentary on the History Channel and he's like, oh yeah, alien bases, no, that makes sense. It's a higher possibility that someone told him about it. And of course, we can think of, for instance, ones that are a little more commonly known, like the Malibu base, right? There are ideas that there are bases off Catalina Island just because of the sheer amount of UFO sightings that are in and around that area off the coast of California. We can look off the seas of Japan, the Dragon Triangle. We can look at the Bermuda Triangle, where there have been reported UFO sightings. And a lot of the coastal areas in most continents will have sightings as well. It would make sense that they are coming from our oceans. And not only that, we can make this even more relevant to recent news, where the sheriff of New Jersey said, my men saw mysterious drones, unknown objects, come out of the water in dozens. Dozens of them came out of the water. That makes them a trans-medium object. They're able to traverse in air, in water, and who knows, maybe even in space. Right? It's remarkable. I know I say this every single time to a point where I want it on a t-shirt, but we are living in exciting times. I'm so excited to look at the news every single day when it comes to UFOs, what people are seeing, what people are reporting. Going on social media as well and looking at that. This conversation has never been spoken about at this level ever before, where we have our US government talk about it, our everyday people talking about it, people coming from out of the shadows to talk about it. Now, this obviously is not a new phenomenon. Other countries are very much ahead compared to the United States. But, and it might sound narcissistic to say, but I'm going to say it, the US is so often in the limelight. People are always looking at the US. Okay, how are they addressing this? How are they talking about this? Is it narcissistic? Yes, absolutely. But it's also true. The cases of where these weird objects were seen over German bases, over English bases, that news came and went real fast. And they've been seen consistently, by the way. When we're looking at the ones taking place in New Jersey, in New York, in Philadelphia, that is saturating the news internationally. I know this because people, viewers, listeners, write me emails from different parts of the world and tell me I've been following this topic like nobody else. It's all over my news in this country. But it's not the other way around. And so for our congressmen and representatives and those in these high status levels to talk about this, everyone's watching. And hopefully it sets a foundation for people to say, okay, maybe it's time to talk about this in greater detail. If we're looking at South America, they've had their UFO offices, Uruguay being one of the first ones, for decades. They're a lot more open about this topic. The stigma is high, but it's not as high as the US. When I spoke to UFO researcher Fernando Hillebrand from Argentina, well, I asked him that exact question. How is Argentina addressing this with their military and government? And he said, amongst people, it's no big deal. It's easy to talk about. It's not a problem. Within the government and military, there are reports being made, but it's a bit more hush-hush. Now, is it hush-hush because they're following the same narrative as the United States? Or because they want to keep it silent amongst themselves? And I mentioned this a lot, but it's very important. In that same Volume 1 Arrow report that was released in March, In the first few pages, there was this one sentence that just beamed at me. And that was, AARO has spoken to foreign UFO offices, and they have all came to the same consensus. That, I'm adding air quotes here, there's nothing to see here. Things are explainable. We saw this with Project Blue Book. When it was in operation from 52 into the 60s, not only were they following stories, cases in the US, they were also getting international cases as well. People in other countries, government officials were like, hey, US, hey, Project Blue Book, take a look at this. Put this in your archives. One of those examples is cases from the Netherlands, where they received a report in 1952 and 1954 as well. That's just one of several countries that are within the Blue Book archives. AARO is looking like a Project Blue Book 2.0. We've seen it since 52 all the way to present day. The US is looking at all of the cases while focusing on its own country. But we can guess here that other countries that have their own UFO offices are also sharing data, as it was reported in that Volume 1 AARO report of, we are speaking to other foreign UFO offices, which is smart. You should be collecting that data, right? It makes perfect sense. But they've all agreed on the same narrative. Japan, after that report was released, the Japanese parliament said, after doing an investigation, there's nothing to see here. Australia followed suit when a FOIA request was released, was asked by Grant Lavac, and he received a FOIA report where Australia said practically the exact same thing. While we're living in exciting times and this topic can no longer be avoided, the narrative is still following suit. We can also see that with the drone incursions, in parentheses, in New Jersey. It's following the same narrative as Roswell in 1947. They said, oh my gosh, it's a saucer. Wait, no, it's a weather balloon. To decades later saying, actually, it was Project Mogul. We are seeing that same blueprint with the things being seen in New Jersey of, we don't know what it is, it's not ours, it's not foreign adversary, but it's not a threat. To the report released 3 weeks later on December 17th of, actually, it is ours and hobbyist drones out of the several thousand reports that we received. This is referring to the FAA and the FBI. And then I can imagine a few years, maybe even a few decades down the line, they'll say, actually, guys, it was a secret project. Which one is the right answer, right? Where should we be looking? The fact that they are adding all of this confusion is the purpose, for you to get bored and distracted and to not look at the overall story, case, incident, sighting. By adding this confusion, it's devastating, it's disappointing, it's boring, but it is what it is. And we just have to learn to work around it and to see it for what it is. If you enjoyed this show, hit that like button right down below and subscribe if you haven't already, as I do several shows right here every single week. And before you head out, bookmark the website ufonews.co, not .com, .co. It keeps you up to date as to all of the UFO news that's taking place internationally. And that's where I got the articles for today, is from that website. That link will also be in the description box below, along with the articles covered. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. If you enjoy the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe, as I do 3 videos right here every single week, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the bonus content I post right here.